I just realized that I threw out most of my role-playing books I grew up with. And that really kind of annoys me. I think the first role-playing game I actually purchased was Star Frontiers. It wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, it was Star Frontiers. And I just discovered that I actually don't have my box set anymore. I realized I threw out actually all of my box sets from my youth, and I must have made some kind of conscious decision to do that, and I don't know why I did now in reflection. I had Star Frontiers, I had Top Secret, I had the black and the green box sets for D&D, which I think is Advanced and Masters. It was strange for that. I never bought any of the original books. In fact, it was years before I even bought the staples of D&D books. I mean, that was it, right? Player's Handbook. That's our first edition. That was actually the first book I ever bought for D&D. Oddly enough, Legends and Lore, one of the most worthless books they ever purchased. I mean, people are going to oh my God, really? You're dissing Legends and Lore? Yes, I am dissing Legends and Lore. It's a great resource. It's historically kind of interesting because it actually has a lot of real lore in it. It's actually pretty useful as a resource, but it's worthless as a book. I mean, I've never, and I've been in many groups, I don't know anybody that's ever played in a game where players actually fought an actual historical religious icon. Like, no one ever fought Odin. It's a worthless book. I think Lolth is the only one of worth, and that's it. That was number 2. Dungeoneer Survival Guide, also pretty much worthless. Not a great book. Eventually, I did get Player's Handbook and Dungeons Master's Guide, and by then I had already moved on to 2nd edition. So, oddly enough, although I keep a lot of these books, Monster Manual 2, Fiend Folio, and a whole bunch of others, they didn't provide much resource. At that point, I started homebrewing my own game. The first game I homebrewed was actually in the early 90s, and I was just building games for no reason. I wasn't really role-playing any of them. I created a game called Battle Horizon ripped off of the Stuart Cowley TTA handbooks, because that's what you did when you were a teenager. You didn't have an original thought. I wasn't really a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not actually technically a fantasy man. I'm a science fiction man mostly. I include fantasy elements in my stories, and I like fantasy. I'm just not a lover of fantasy, and I prefer science fiction, which means the first real hard role-playing that I started to really get into passionately. Robotech. Yeah, oddly enough. This is the first one I bought too, Southern Cross. I actually have about 30. I'm not kidding. People just lend me and giving me their books and not taking them back. As a result, I have virtually every single of the Palladium Robotech books. And that was the first one. This was actually the one in the worst condition. I have ones that are practically mint. Sentinels, you name it, I've got it. But the real game that really got me going, that really encouraged creating my own games, that's right, Mechton, of all things. Artel Azurian Games. From Cyberpunk 2020, 2013, and definitely Mechton, everything that Mike Pondsmith basically touched was gold, and I milked it to death. Not as much as in Cyberpunk. I only had a few books in Cyberpunk, but I have friends that basically have all of them. But Mechton, oh yeah, every one. And that was basically my big source of inspiration. And I was creating mech games all the way into the 90s using this system. When they adopted Fusion, I homebrewed the original Alien Fusion game, which you can still find on serenadawn.com. And that's based on this type of structure. And that's actually how I got going in role-playing. And they were $26 for a softcover, which is odd too, because books are not really coming down in price. And you're getting a lot more value for your money, because you look at these books. I mean, even looking at the old box sets, and they have some badly made maps, some dice, and really, really pathetic artwork. And that was kind of a signature. You accepted it. You look at the artwork from Fiend Folio and Monster Manual 2. They're horrible. They're horrible. We take such a high regard of art nowadays, and rightly so. But it's one of those things that we look back and go, you remember when the artwork was just bad, just really, really bad. That's how you get started. You get started basically figuring out a system you like and writing for it. West End was a good system. I like what they did with Star Wars. I thought it was a good system. And although I'm used to 3.5 D&D, it was never my favorite system. I like a simple system that I can build off of, and not a system that was overly complicated that restricted me when I wanted to do something original, which is the reason why I hate GURPS. I'll say it. People get angry. I ran GURPS for 3 or 4 years. My Pathfinder game, which I mentioned, is actually using the GURPS system, and I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy it at all. I don't like the system. I don't like writing for the system, and like I said, after that game was over, I swore I would never touch it again. So that leads into when I started creating my own games. And I started off in 2000 when I made Amethyst. And Amethyst was meant as, it was an original story called Amethyst back in the 90s. That was just basically dragons in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And there were these castle-like cities called bastions. And that was basically it. There was no real magic, but there was dragons in it. Then the film Rain of Fire came out, and that basically, I killed that idea. So fast forward, I dusted off for a friend and I created this Amethyst setting. We dumped the D&D setting basically into this original, this post-apocalyptic setting, and Amethyst came out. And it would be probably 6 or 7 years of redesigning and retconning that setting to get it to the form it is now. And if you look at the D20 book published in 2008, you compare that to the Foundations book put out in 2010, there is considerable fluff that has been changed from edition to edition. And if you look back to the original 2001 homebrew, which is no longer available, but it was for a while was still available on this 3 Dawn page, it is considerably different. We didn't change any of the staple fantasy tropes. So everything that you remembered from classic D&D, so the elves were elves, wood elves, high elves, you still had dragons, you still had demons. The chaos and order axis hadn't flipped the way it is, with evil being law and chaos being good. That element didn't come into until probably just before the book came out in 2008. And I was having a conversation with someone, and that idea just came out of disruption. Disruption didn't occur for 2 years, almost about a year into the game, and I actually created a retcon because it was a huge plot hole. And it's a plot hole that continues to annoy me in modern techno-fantasies. If everyone could have magic, why would there be technology? If technology was common, why would people have magic? It's one of those things where when it comes to economics, the easiest solution will dominate. That's why we don't have HD and Blu-ray, why we don't have multiple, we didn't have VHS and beta or 8-track and cassette. One format dominates. And so I think of fantasy, and I look at a magic and a level of technology, and you realize at some point one of them would gain dominance, right? If it was commonplace. If magic was rare, but of course it never appears to be rare in these settings. Apparently anyone in their dog can have magic. You see it all the time. So unless there's some type of social restriction or some type of physical or physiological restriction within the setting, it always creates an issue. And when you're adding in technological elements into a D&D style fantasy setting, you have to give it some kind of justification of how they're mixing. And so I realized the trick with Amethyst was to have them not at all do that. And it frustrated some people, frustrated a few players, to creating that schism. Because, I mean, you couldn't launch a fireball and shoot a gun, or load a fireball into a gun. And although some people wanted to do that, I looked at it and said, well, you could do that with a lot of other formats. You can do that with a lot of games, both video games and pen and paper. And we wanted to create something that was wholly unique. I wanted the technological side to be separate. It wasn't always this way. When the game started, we actually had a techno mage, and one of the spells allowed you to access a satellite in orbit to fire a laser from the sky. It's a neat idea, but nothing ever came out of it. So we fast forward to 2008, and this game now is running almost uninterrupted for 7 or 8 years. And I decided to go for broke, put some money down, grab some art, and produce Amethyst for real, which came out in the 2008 book. Unfortunately, 2008 was also the announcement of 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which came out a month after our book. Now, though we could have stuck with 3.5, we could have waited and then jumped on the Paizo bandwagon, but Pathfinder hadn't been announced, hadn't come out, nothing. We knew nothing about Pathfinder, nothing. We jumped on that bandwagon. We took the risk to go to 4th edition, Do we regret it? Absolutely not. I still say it's a superior system. And since then, it allows us now to stand separately from a lot of people who have either abandoned 4th edition or not adopted it in the first place. But the advantage of adopting 4th edition and being the first or second company to sign under the GSL, it got the attention of Goodman Games. And Goodman Games said, oh, look, you actually are taking the risk out by signing onto the GSL. I like your book. Let's publish it. And that started the 2-year process to put out Foundations in 2010. I was a little bit behind. By the time it came out, the sun had started to set on 4th edition. There was a lot of public outcry. Pathfinder was becoming this newest golden child, and there was some resistance. So by the time we came out in 2010, suddenly it wasn't the resounding system that we had hoped. And as a result of that, Goodman eventually departed for 4th edition, and we didn't follow into their own system or into Pathfinder, at least not initially. We eventually kept on putting out 4th edition products, and we still do. Almost everything we're going to be putting out is still going to be 4th edition. We're going to have a variation for Pathfinder, and maybe even a variation of D&D next. And then along the way, I also created the cyberpunk game Neurospasta, and I'm also putting out a superhero variation of Ultramodern called Apex. If Apex ends up doing well beyond the free editions that are going already, there is a space operatic or space horror, not a space horror, but a space horror setting that I'm trying to develop as well. So what's next? Right now, as it stands, we're developing a new project in the Amethyst universe, Amethyst Factions. It's going to be using 4th edition and Pathfinder. It's primarily a campaign setting book, so it's going to have monsters, monster features, evil classes, evil feats, and so forth, and then a setting expansion as well. And we're starting that as a Kickstarter because I want to do it in full color. The stretch goals include re-releasing the old Amethyst books in full color, and that's our stretch goal. If we manage to get that stretch goal, then the D&D next version of Amethyst will also be in full color. If we continue our stretch goals, we also have a soundtrack we're working on, as well as some dungeons and modules as well. So that's going to be in the future. This YouTube channel is a slightly detached version of all that. It's going to exist with or without the Kickstarter. Okay?